Hi guys, and welcome to a record update video. So it's been a few weeks since I did my record collection overview and finished the actual video, but that video was actually filmed about 2-3 months ago now, I think, because I was still living in my uni house at the time and I've moved back home now. So yeah, I have got quite a few records since then, most of which were in the first couple of weeks after doing the overview. At the time I did it, I actually had a couple things on the way. I'm just going to get into it. They were all 12 inches. First one is Queens of the Stone Ages, rated R, although this one's the rated X edition because I believe it was the 10th anniversary vinyl release. Big Queens of the Stone Age fan. This is one of my favourites by him. I consider this and Songs for the Deaf kind of to be very similar albums, and two of my favourites also. Because this in many ways is kind of the precursor to that album, like how it's the first one that has the collaborations from Mark Lanigan doing vocals, and it was the first album with Nick Oliveri, who was the bassist and also did a lot of the vocals on the two albums, more of the aggressive, punky sort of vocals. And yeah, this is a really, really good album. I've only actually listened to the vinyl once so far, but it sounds great. It was actually, when I originally filmed the overview, I was doing some extra little bits, which is why it took so long to be uploaded, because I was recording sort of the gatefolds and stuff and opening it up and showing all the insides, and this is actually the record. This record is the reason why I stopped doing that, because I opened the gatefold and it's just nudity everywhere. So if I was to show this off, I'd have to censor so much, and I was just like, you know what, I can't be bothered. There's not a lot of point in adding it in. I'll just throw some pictures up if I want to talk about it. Yeah, really great album. Definitely want to recommend if you're a fan of stoner rock and stoner metal, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's got tracks like Feel Good, Hit of the Summer, The Lost Art of Keeping a Secret, Tension Head, Better, Living Through Chemistry. Just a great album in general. One of my favourites by the band. And I cannot wait for the new one. I have pre-ordered it as well, so when I do an update around about when that album comes out, you'll see it. Next up is one that I actually talked about wanting to get in the last update. I've got a couple by this band. For some reason I haven't put them together here, but oh well, I'll talk about them separately. But yeah, beforehand, all the ones I got by this band were their most recent record, and now I have two more into the collection. This one being my absolute favourite. I did a review of it last year on my channel, or it might have been the year before that, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, it is Panic at the Disco's Pretty Odd. I adore this album. I think all their albums are very different, and this is kind of, it goes for a more Beach Boys, Beatles, 60s psychedelic pop-esque sound, and it definitely really, really works. I think this is by far their best. The last album with Ryan Ross, who was the guitarist and also secondary songwriter, he has a lot of vocal parts on this album. There's songs like Behind the Sea where he pretty much does lead vocals on it, and then songs like Northern Downpour and Mad as Rabbits where they share it, him and Brendan Urie. But yeah, it's a really great album. It has some of my favourite Panic at the Disco songs, including 9 in the Afternoon, which is by far my absolute favourite the band have ever done. So yeah, the only other one I've got is Death of a Bachelor, except for the other one I'm talking about later on in the update video. But yeah, but this came out earlier this year. There was a bit of a weird thing where I pre-ordered it and then it got delayed till like the end of December this year, and I cancelled that pre-order because I wanted it. It was supposed to come out last year or so. I think it was meant to come out like November last year along with Phoebe Can't Sweat Out, and it got delayed so far I was like, no, I can't be bothered. So I cancelled it, and then I was looking at it curiously to see if anything had been updated, and it turned out that they were actually out. So yeah, I got it almost instantly. I couldn't afford Phoebe Can't Sweat Out at the time, but I definitely plan on getting it sometime in the future because I love both albums. I think they're really, really great. But Pretty Odd, by far my favourite Panic at the Disco album. Definitely one I'd recommend checking out if you're a fan of 60s psychedelic pop, in the vein of like the Beatles' later albums and Beach Boys' like Pet Sound sort of thing. So yeah, great album. Next is one which I may have talked about in that original collection video, but I'm not 100% sure, so I thought I'd bring it up just in case. I know it was one I got around about the time later on in me living in the uni house, which was when I filmed that original video, so I could have gotten it and done the collection video then, or I could have gotten it like a day or two after I did the collection video. I can't remember, so I'll just talk about it anyway. It is Too Low for Zero by Elton John. I got this on Discogs. But yeah, I haven't actually listened to this album yet, but it's got a couple of really good songs on there that I really like I'm Still Standing, and I guess that's why they call it the blues. Really dig those songs. And Kiss the Bride, I know that song as well because it was on a greatest hits CD I had when I was growing up. But yeah, haven't actually listened to it yet, but I look forward to doing it. It was really cheap. I think I only paid about £3 or £4 for this. So yeah, I think they must have pressed so many copies of it that it just isn't rare or anything nowadays. But pretty much all of his albums seem to be like that, because I was scrolling through all of them trying to find one to get, and most of them were cheap. I just got this one because it was the only one where it had more than one song that I actually knew for some reason. So yeah, I look forward to eventually checking this out, although I've had it for like 2 or 3 months, so I should probably get on that. Next up is one of my favourite albums of all time. I adore this album. It's by one of my favourite bands, probably my favourite by them. It's tough to pick between this and their first album, but I reviewed their most recent album last year when it came out, and yeah, I still really love the band, and I've actually been listening to them quite a bit recently for some reason. No particular reason, I just been in the mood to listen to them. I'm talking about Weezer, and I got Pinkerton. I got this Pie and Vinyl, a record store in Portsmouth where I'm from, which is a really good record store. Got another thing in this collection in the update that I'll be talking about in a bit. But yeah, Pinkerton or Blue Album's my favourite by him, but this is the only one I've got. But I love Pinkerton so much. It's them kind of delving more into emo, like sort of darker sort of songs. It's got the singles like The Good Life and El Scorcho on here, and some of my favourite Weezer songs like Across the Sea is possibly my favourite Weezer song. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, if I was to do a list, I think that would be very high up on the list. But yeah, Pinkerton is just a fantastic album. It's it at first was really hated by people because a lot of people were very mixed when it comes to bands who have great debut albums, who have weird second albums that aren't quite the same, and I think this was so different and so dark compared to the really bright and upbeat first album that a lot of people were put off. And yeah, the band hated it for ages, but luckily they've warmed up to it now, as have the fans. They did a few shows a few years ago where they did the Blue Album and Pinkerton back to front, or front to back, and I'm really jealous of anyone who went there because that sounds like it would have been a great show. But Pinkerton, fantastic album, definitely one I'd recommend checking out if you're a fan of Weezer and haven't really gotten into their discography, or if you're a fan of sort of dark, emo, 90s sort of rock albums. Definitely really good stuff. Next up is the other Panic at the Disco album I got Too Weird to Live, Too Rare to Die. I can't remember how much this was, but I'm pretty sure I got it from HMV for like £12–13. It was really cheap, which is why I got it. Yeah, I really dig this album. It's a really bright, upbeat synth pop album. Definitely very different to everything they've done before, and even Death of a Bachelor. But it's got some of my favourites by them on here. Songs like This Is Gospel, of course, the big single on there. There's also Girl That You Love, Girls, Boys, Casual Affair, Colourful, The End of All Things, which is probably one of my favourite songs by the band, and definitely my favourite on this album. It's definitely a very interesting album with a lot of mixture of like hip hop and stuff. The production is fantastic on here. It's got a lot of auto-tune, but he uses it in a way that kind of adds to the whole style of the song, where it's not he's a great singer and he doesn't use auto-tune if he doesn't think that it will, if he only uses it kind of as an effect to make the song sound really weird and cool. He doesn't use it to correct his voice or anything. He did it a bit on Phoebe You Can't Swear Out, but here he kind of explores it a little bit more, and it definitely sounds really good. Like on Girl That You Love and Casual Affair, he uses it loads, and both those songs I think are beautiful, and The End of All Things is just magnificent. I'm thinking of doing a like top 15 or top 20 or something, favourite Panic at the Disco songs, so I'll talk more in depth about songs like The End of All Things on there. So yeah, definitely one I'd recommend checking out if you're a fan of Panic! At the Disco or synth pop, really. That and Pinkerton I actually got on the same day, as with this next one, which I actually got in the same place I got Pinkerton. And when I went up, they actually praised me for what I picked up and said, you got some real classics here. Yeah, one of my favourite bands, possibly second or third favourite band, and I'm not sure whether this or probably their more famous album is my favourite by them, but this is definitely a strong contender. I'm talking about Dookie by Green Day. Yeah, it's tough for me to pick between this or American Idiot as my favourite, but I think this is a really, really great album. It's not really aged that well, but I grew up with it, so I have a strong connection to it. It broke them into the mainstream, and it was one of the first albums in the 90s that brought punk into the mainstream as well. And it's had a huge effect on not just punk, but mostly pop punk. This is considered to be one of the most groundbreaking albums in the genre. If you like 90s pop punk, you have a lot to owe to this album, really. Bands like The Offspring and stuff have very similar sounds, especially their earlier stuff. It's very raw, kind of underdeveloped at times, but it has some fantastic songs, and I just think it's a really great album. I pretty much love every single pre-American Idiot Green Day album except for Kaplunk. I think their 1039 Smoothed Out Slappy Hours, that compilation's great. Dookie's great, Insomniac I love, Nimrod is really good, and Warning is incredibly underrated. And their later stuff I'm not huge on. 21st Century Breakdown I like. Uno Dos Tres is awful, and Revolution Radio I thought was decent, but nothing amazing. Yeah, I love Green Day, especially Dookie, so it's a really great album. Next up is one I actually talked about in the collection video where I said I need to get this because I had another one of his albums, and I can't remember if I'd actually bought it at the time, but it's another Discogs album. I'm talking about Thriller by Michael Jackson. It's tough for me to decide whether this or Bad are my favourites, but I love both albums. The only problem I have with this one is not actually the album in general, more of the actual Discogs listing, because they said it was in very good condition, and it's not in very good condition. The sleeve's all really, really worn. The actual sleeve on the inside's like pretty much ripped completely in half, and the actual vinyl disc is so scratched, a few of the songs skip really badly, so I couldn't be bothered to like argue with them and say, you sent me a terrible vinyl, can I have my money back or anything, so I've just kept it. So whatever, I'll try and clean it up a bit, see if I can get it working better, but yeah, kind of unlikely. But either way, really great album, and I'm glad that I own it because it's got some fantastic Michael Jackson songs on it, and I'm a huge fan of him. Next up, we have an album that I've waited a long time to get on vinyl. I don't know why I waited so long, because it's one of my favourite albums, probably in my top 5, by my favourite singer-songwriter ever. I'm talking about Either Or by Elliott Smith. I'm a huge Elliott Smith fan. I got a figure 8 tattoo on my arm. And this is probably one of, if not my favourite album by him. I'd say it's really tough for me to pick between 3 albums, this, XO, or Figure 8. I think all 3 albums are just absolutely fantastic. And this is the new expanded edition, the 20th anniversary edition that came out this year. It's not the yellow one that they got in the US. For some reason we didn't get that in the UK. We only got a normal vinyl, but it's really cool and sounds great. Second disc comes with a few live songs, including songs like I think it's My New Freedom and Some Song, which I really, really like. And it's got a couple of bonus tracks, like a couple of B-sides from previous releases, like I Don't Think I'm Ever Gonna Figure This Out, which is great, and I Figured This Out, which I don't know if it was properly released before this edition, but I first heard of it because of this, and it's becoming one of my favourite songs by him. But this album is just perfect. Every single song I adore. There's not a single song I don't like. And yeah, as a singer-songwriter myself, this album has been a huge influence on my music, and acoustic songs that I write, so I have a lot to owe to this album. It's got some of my favourite songs of all times on here, like Ballad of Big Nothing, Between the Bars, Pictures of Me, Rose Parade, Angelus, and Say Yes. All fantastic songs that I adore so much and listen to loads. I think this is one of the albums I've listened to the most out of any album ever made, and I only discovered it about 3 or 4 years ago, so that's pretty impressive that I listened to it so many times. But I just adore this album, and I want to get the other albums he's done, because every single one of his albums recently got re-released, which is really cool, so I'm going to pick them all up soon. I've got EXO already, so I just need to get the other ones, which hopefully over time I will get. But yeah, either or, just a fantastic album, one I definitely recommend if you're into singer-songwriter, indie folk sort of stuff. Next up is one of the coolest records I own. It's a really, really underrated album, one that I've been singing the praises for ever since I first discovered it. One that I just love so much, and when I saw that they were releasing a very limited run of it for the... I don't think it was even for... Oh yeah, it was for the 15th anniversary. They were releasing a very limited run of it. I think it was 1,000 copies. I think they did 2,000 altogether. 1,000 were signed, 1,000 were unsigned. I got the unsigned one because the signed sold out instantly. But either way, I'm really, really happy to own this. It is Boxcar Racer, their one and only album. For those who don't know, Boxcar Racer is the side project of Blink-182's Tom DeLonge and Travis Barker. Written while Tom DeLonge was going through a lot, like he was struggling with drug addiction stuff, and he was really angry and writing these really aggressive post-hardcore emo songs, and he didn't feel like they fit in with Blink, so he went away and wrote this album and got Travis to drum on it. Kind of sparked a lot of the issues in the band which caused their initial breakup, but I think this album is just perfect. It's one of my favourite emo albums ever. Really, really dark, aggressive, and yet catchy, sometimes fun and upbeat stuff. Like songs like There Is are pretty upbeat compared to the rest of the album. But yeah, definitely a really, really underrated album. I just love it. It comes in a red vinyl, which I'll probably show a picture of right now. I'm so happy to own this. It was a little bit expensive, but you know what? I don't care. It was worth it. Next up, we got one of my favourite albums of the year. I recently went to Download Festival, actually, and I got to see the band. Although I was a little bit disappointed by their set, more so because I didn't know a lot of the songs, because they didn't really play a lot of this album. I was still glad to see them, and I still really, really love this album. I'm talking about the debut from Blood Youth, Beyond Repair. Blood Youth are a really great hardcore sort of metalcore band. I got a signed copy of the album as well. It was, I think, £15 on their website. But yeah, they're quite a small band, but they're starting to kind of make an impact in the scene. They're very fast, aggressive. There's not a single slow song on the album. It's kind of a relentless, like, blast in your face, and I think it's fantastic. There are some really, really good and actually catchy songs on here. Not catchy in a way where they're like really like got loads of pop melodies and stuff. There's just moments that are really memorable and really stand out. Some songs like What I'm Running Away From, or What I'm Running From, Parasite, I Remember, and Reason to Stay, all of which are just fantastic. Definitely one I'd recommend if you're a fan of more hardcore punk and metalcore sort of stuff. They blend the two genres together really, really well. So if you're a fan of music like that and that has loads of screaming and aggressive riffs and stuff, then this is definitely one for you. Next is an album that is another metalcore album, but one I've not actually listened to yet. My friend Max, who I did my show TMC with a couple years ago, he gave it to me because he got it. His record player skipped loads of times and it wasn't the right colour that they were advertising, so he messaged them and they gave him a new one. So he just gave me this and said I could test it to see if it was just a problem with his record player or whether it played. But I've not actually listened to it yet, so who knows. It is the new album from While She Sleeps, You Are We. Yeah, I've not really listened to While She Sleeps that much, so I don't really know much about this album, but I know a lot of people say it's really, really good, and it's signed. The only issue with the signing is that they did it all at the bottom for some reason, which is kind of strange. I would have preferred if it was signed all around, but so be it. I look forward to checking this album out eventually, but yeah, so far I've not heard it. So earlier in the year, about a month or two ago, I went to Brighton for the first time. When I was there, I went to see a punk musician who I'm a huge fan of, and this was one of his albums. This was one of my favourite albums of 2015 whenever it came out. His most recent album, which I've shown in my overview video, it was one of my favourite albums of last year, possibly like second or third favourite album of the year, and easily one of my favourite punk albums of the past decade. This was his 2015 album, which isn't as good as the newest one, but still fantastic album, and he put on a great gig. I'm talking about Jeff Rosenstock and his album We Cool. It was really cool getting to see him. It was a really small venue in Brighton, my first time there, so we were really scared of getting lost and stuff, but we made our way there. The venue was really small. I discovered another really great punk band called Doe, who I've been pretty much obsessed over ever since. But yeah, We Cool was a fantastic album. He didn't actually do a lot of songs off it. I don't think he did. Actually, no, he did a fair few. He did Get Old Forever, which he added in the end because it wasn't originally on the set list, but he didn't want to end the show because he pretty much got to the end of the set and was like, I don't want this to end because it's the last show of the tour and we don't want to finish. So they threw in a few other songs, like they did a cover of Last Resort by Papa Roach, which was really weird. They did a cover of My Own Worst Enemy by Lit, then they got into Get Old Forever, and they also did the song Hall of Fame. That was a great gig. Also throughout the set they did You and Weird Cities, Nausea, I think that was it actually. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was all they did, but they were great. They did a lot of Worry, which I loved. They also did his first album, I can't remember what it was called, but that first demo album, they did so many songs from that, which I was surprised by because he doesn't play them a lot at the moment, but it was the last show of the tour, and he was like, I want to change things up a bit, play some songs we haven't played in like 5 or 6 years. So that was pretty cool. I would have liked it if I actually really knew the songs, but I'm not a huge fan of that first demo album. But yeah, I love the songs he played from We Cool and from Worry, the most recent one. But We Cool's a great album, definitely really great pop punk stuff, but it's very different to your normal pop punk stuff. It's more 90s alt rock inspired, and lyrics are very, very dark and depressing. It's quite honest. It's very different to your normal pop punk album in the way it's not all upbeat and fun. It's very much about kind of growing up and the sad moments of that, why growing up sucks, and kind of how everyone else that you know is kind of growing up and going on to have great lives and getting fancy cars and jobs and stuff, and you're kind of just still there doing nothing. You're kind of still trying to relive the youth, and yeah, it goes into topics like that quite a lot on the album with songs like Get Old Forever. And yeah, it gets very depressing at times, but it's definitely a really good album, one that I find myself singing along to all the time. There's songs on here that I adore, like Get Old Forever, You and Weird Cities, Nausea. My personal favourite song by him, I'm Serious, I'm Sorry, is on this album as well, which I was a bit sad that he didn't do live, but it's quite a depressing song, it would have brought the mood down. But either way, really great album. I can't wait for whatever he does next. He just released a split single recently, which was really pretty good. And while I was in Brighton, I went to a record store called Resident Music, which I've heard a lot about. The punk band Slaves did a record store day video a couple of years ago when they went there and walked around. So I wanted to go there while we were in Brighton because we had all day to spare. And although there wasn't a lot in there that I really wanted, I ended up picking this record up because recently it's gone down massively in price, and I thought, I might as well get it now before it goes back up in price. And although it's not an amazing album, or even my favourite album by this band, which I already have on vinyl, it's definitely an album that I like, has a few catchy sing-along songs. I'm talking about Babel by Mumford & Sons. Yeah, definitely not as good as Sigh No More. A big improvement over Wilder Mind, which even though I put on my favourite albums of 2015, in hindsight, I think I may have only put that on there because I couldn't think of anything else to put on the list. yeah, Wilder Mind isn't great. It's not really even that good. But Babel is decent. I like it. It's got some really, really good songs on there, but I don't think it's quite as good as Sigh No More. Sigh No More has just no bad songs in my opinion, whereas this one, it gets quite boring later on. But there's still songs that I love. Like, I love the entire side A, which has Babel, Whispers in the Dark, I Will Wait, Holland Road, Ghosts That We Knew, and Lover of the Light. It's only on the second half where there's only like 3 of the, I think it's 6 songs that I like. They're Lover's Eyes, Hopeless Wanderer, which is probably my favourite Mumford & Sons song. It's either that or White Blank Page. And Broken Crown's really good as well. I understand why a lot of people don't really like this band. A lot of people kind of consider them just to be boring pop music that use sort of folk elements like a banjo and acoustic guitar just for a gimmicky sound. And yeah, I kind of understand where they're getting from. But I think they do have some real legit folk rock moments in there. Definitely more so on Sigh No More than this album, but both albums are good. This is just lesser of the two. But yeah, definitely one I enjoy. And finally, actually tying into the Brighton theme, we have a band that come from Brighton. Our band, this is their most recent album. I've got a review which will, if it's not up already, will be up in the next few days of their most recent album that came out a week or two ago. And I don't want to spoil the review too much, so I won't really talk about this record. It is the new album from Royal Blood, How Do We Get So Dark? Quick spoiler alert, not sure about this one that much, especially compared to their first one. It's got some good songs on it, but I'm not really digging it as much as I dug the first one. But the best thing about this record is I got the Super Deluxe edition, which is pretty cool. Comes with, of course, the normal album folds out. It comes with a CD copy, which I really like it when records do that. I think the only other one I've really got that comes with a CD copy is Has Like Houses Dissonance. And it also comes with a bonus 7-inch with 2 bonus songs, both of which are really, really good and actually better than some of the songs on the album. So yeah, but we'll talk about that whenever I do the review. I need to film it, so I'll probably do that in a second. But yeah, How Do We Get So Dark? So yeah, that's everything. It's possible that there's a couple more that I've got in my boxes, but that I've forgotten about. So they'll just be there until I eventually do maybe another overview sometime. I'm going to do a CD collection overview soon because I was going to do an update, but I think since did my last update, I've got so many new ones. It's not a lot of point. I might as well just go through and do it all again. So I'll do that sometime in the future. Yeah, that's all I can really say. So thanks for watching, guys. Sorry that I babbled on a bit about some of them, but so be it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.